Hi, everybody. Today's guest is Nick Osborne. Nick, I have you down as International Man of Mystery. You're still looking a little bit James Bond-like. So how are things in London? How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Graham. It's been an interesting 6 weeks. I think for myself, I think it's ironic that we're talking on Zoom, but no travel, nothing, staying in, doing what's necessary. So yeah, good. Nice V Day today. Some nice celebrations in London. Fly past this morning, so good to get out there and see everybody with a really positive spirit today.
Yeah, it's a really important day in terms of giving some respect for everybody and making sure that, for me, the 2 minute silence is important, but we need to respect that every day, and we need to be thinking about those people, and not only the people who served in the war, but also the people in the NHS. And that's been really good to see over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, where everybody's been pulling together. And I guess the issue over Brexit, which divided the country over the last 2 to 3 years, this has been a pandemic, whilst it's been bringing everybody together a little bit more. I think it's brought the countries together a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's good to see a resurgence in people's respect and value for people who work in the public services and things like that. And some times like today, you've seen it on the Thursday night claps, and over the past 6 weeks, I think it's been a positive spirit amongst 95% of the population. And at the end of the day, today's a good reference point as well for people who, everyone finds the lockdown difficult in different ways, but if you compare it to what our predecessors in previous generations had to go through, especially those who were sent off to fight on the front line, staying home for 6 weeks is a small sacrifice compared to what a lot of those people had to give. So I think it's a great day for reference today, and to put into perspective some of the challenges we might have in our own lives. It's nice to see a barometer against what people had before.
Yeah, I like that. And I think for parents as well, it's also a great time for education. And we have a 6-year-old daughter, and she's asking the questions about why can't she go out, and why do we clap on a Thursday night, and why do we have to have 2 minute silence for the soldiers and people who went through those wars. And I think it's a great opportunity to instill better values in the next generation, but also to remember what's gone on previously in terms of, from a history point of view, and educate some of the younger population. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think for families at home, what a great time for people like yourselves to be able to talk about subjects that might not necessarily always be covered in an academic textbook in that style. So, I think it's the time between families now, and the bonding and the ability to influence your child's education, various things. It's great. And speaking to my friends, they've had a lot of, it's been difficult. It's been very hard to homeschool, but also very rewarding in that sense of spending that quality time together, and being able to be there and have the time to ask questions and to answer questions is invaluable in family life.
And that brings it back around to you, because I guess we've talked over the years, and in your role and what you do, and a lot of other business execs that I work with always have this kind of need to want to spend more time at home. I'd like to spend more time at home, Graham, and I haven't seen the wife for donkeys, and I haven't seen my kids growing up, and so we have that in terms of this international executive roles that you guys play. And now there's a perfect opportunity just to reflect a little bit, because you haven't got international travel. You can't maintain the business the way that you would normally do it. So how are you finding that? And I know you fly a lot, Nick. So how are you finding not flying?
Very strange, to be honest. I think this is the most time I've not been on a plane since I was about 18 or 19. So it's been different. I mean, to be honest, exactly as you said, in some aspects, it's been really great for me, in that it's given me time to sit and strategize, to look at things from a point of not having to worry about when do I get to the airport, when do I do this, and not having small windows of time. So it's been really interesting that time to sit and plan. However, you do miss your daily rhythm of life, and my daily rhythm of life has been getting on planes, traveling to international places, doing meetings face to face, various things like that. So you do feel like you're missing something in that sense. And even when I've been talking with colleagues and customers, it's very unusual at the start to be doing it over Zoom and various things when you're really used to that flow of international business, which is to arrive somewhere, meetings, even doing the things on the side like dinners and the lunches and then the prep sessions with your team in different environments, and trying to learn a different environment very quickly. It's strange to not be doing it, I have to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I hadn't even thought about that coming into this conversation in terms of what I thought we could talk about. But having lived and worked abroad quite a lot myself over the years, I think I spent nearly 10 years abroad, is different cultures have different way of dealing with things. So all of a sudden, you're now having to maybe manipulate a conversation, maybe having to read a conversation with somebody who's from a different culture that you wouldn't necessarily have the visual cues or the pickup cues that you would get when you're face to face with them.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I know one of your topics that you're in is emotional intelligence, but also when you're in the working world, one of the hard things is building trust. And it's difficult to build trust with someone you just meet and to bond with them over video. Yeah. However, that traditional way we build trust and we bond with each other and we build a relationship where we can work together is by breaking bread, it's by going out for a meal, it's by having that physical interaction with each other, shaking hands, just building that kind of rapport. So meeting someone for the first time over VC or Zoom is difficult to get that subtle communication that you trust each other. It's easy when you have your own team, like working within my team. I don't have any problem because we all know each other. We've built that level of trust, and this is just a different form of communication. But when it's someone new, it's a very different environment.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of the Asian market, because the Asian market has a lot of business etiquette that goes on, especially from somebody from a Western civilization going over there. So how do you get over something like that? Because you can't necessarily hand them their business card with two hands. When you're on a Zoom call, how do you broker that relationship with them? I
think it's this, some of the similar points of knowing your culture, the respect, that kind of thing. So depending on, for instance, a classic one on Zoom I've seen a lot over the last few weeks is dress code. Is, depending on the audience you're talking to, so some people have a very relaxed dress code, and that's great if you're working with tech firms and various things like that. And then sometimes you have if you're unsure of the person you're meeting and various things like that, you might go even with the suit and tie approach at home. So it's a minefield. Whereas traditionally, you'd be like, okay, I've got my suit and tie ready to go into a meeting. It's going to be formal. But when everybody's at home, you don't know what you're going to get on the other end of the VC to a certain extent.
No, you're right, Nick. Nick, can I ask you to stand up right now, then, just to test the thing? Really interesting though, because one of the things which we've done with these videos, and we've done 32 people for this month, and we split them up into my business, which is business education and sport. So the business people, I've pretty much been polo shirt, dress polo shirt, or a shirt. With the athletes, which are coming next week, and we've got 4 Olympians, and we've got 2 professional football players, and we've got 3 people who should be going to the Olympics, either maybe 2021, but definitely 2024, 2028. I've been relaxed, polo shirt, t-shirt, branded up that way. So you're right, is that we reflect what we want to get out almost through our attire as well.
Well, as I knew I was being interviewed by an ex-athlete, I dressed down for today.
Thanks for that, Nick. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, because that's the way I do business in a really relaxed format. Whether you are the chief exec of somebody like the Marina Mandarin in Singapore, which is now the Mandarin Oriental, or if it's Stu Beagley who owns ABL, for me, my personality has to be in that way. And I buy into you guys. The respect is still there, but it has to come in terms of from my personality. And you're the same, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even talking about travel, for instance, I'm one of these people. Whenever I can, I like to travel pretty casually, to be comfortable, but also because I find it puts me in a more relaxed mode to think about things. And one of the things important when you're traveling all the time is that you use your time wisely when you're flying, when you're moving about to travel, to actually be thinking about things that are of value to your business, to your strategy, to whatever it is. So, I mean, for instance, when I get on planes, when I get on various forms of travel around the world, I'm always using that time to either shut down and relax, or I'm using that time to be thinking about what I want to achieve at the other end. And it's great if you've got 3-hour, 4-hour flight, to just be sitting there, to be thinking about your problems or thinking about the issues you have to solve at the other end of the meeting in a slightly different environment than in front of your laptop, in front of your computer. So I often just have a pad of paper and I'll just scribble some notes down, because it's just invaluable time. I mean, if you look at the modern world, how many hours in a day do we get where we can just switch off from everything and just think about something that we need to do? So, on that time when you're on a plane is invaluable, because you can't access your phone on most, you can now, but on most planes you can't. So you've actually got time away from communication and the fire problems that are coming in on half an hour every 10-15 minutes. So use that 2-3 hours wisely to think about the strategy that you want to implement, think about a bigger problem, or think about what you want to achieve by your meeting at the other end. Who you're going to be meeting, what do you want to talk about, what are those key bullet points in your presentation that you really want to emphasize. So I use that time, for me, I always see my travel time as valuable, and I like to make it as relaxing and comfortable as possible. So it just helps me give that vision that my mind can go wide and I can go into different areas, because I'm not constrained by having to do work in that period.
Okay, well, that answers some of the questions in terms of preparation on an airplane from a business point of view, which is fab. But we all know the physiological constraints that flying has in terms of crossing time zones and things like that, and staying in different hotels. And we've had conversations over the years where you've literally, you've flown, you've landed, you've gone to a meeting, and then you've gone back to the airport, or you're literally you're there 24 hours in the country and you're off again. How do you physiologically stay on your A game in terms of keeping your own health up, keeping your own motivation up? But we talk about being on your A game. How do you maintain that?
In all honesty, it's hard. It's really hard, especially, I mean, shifting time zones has an effect on your body all the time. I mean, some places you go is easier than others. So, for instance, if you go to Asia or Australia, because of the time difference, you're going to be up early in the morning. So that's an easy one for me, because you're up at 5 a.m. You can't sleep. You don't have to be somewhere until 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Great time to get up, get a run in outside, to go to the gym, do something like that, have breakfast, enjoy that morning, and then you arrive refreshed. I find sometimes if you go to places like Europe, it can become tougher with a 1 hour time difference, because you're going to an area where actually you're waking up earlier than you normally would. You're going to bed later than you normally would. You're not getting your 7, your 5, your 6, whatever you're used to hours sleep. You're getting less than that. And so it becomes quite difficult. So I think the main key thing is don't set your bar too high. I think there is an element as well of people saying, I've got to work out every day, or I've got to go to the gym. Sometimes actually sleep is more valuable, and you're actually just putting in an hour of wasted time, because you're not physiologically, you might have gone to the gym, you might have done your stuff, but you arrive at the meeting with bags under your eyes and you're super tired. You're mentally not fresh. So I think you've really got to listen to your body when you're traveling, which is what I do. I do try and create some time in a day, but also I quite like to do exercise that also gives me an advantage from my meetings. So one of the key things I think that people do is make sure you get fresh air whenever you're traveling, walk it about. It also helps you with your meeting, because it gives you an understanding of the culture of that city, even if you're just getting a coffee, walking about, understanding the layout. But it also it shows a sign of respect to whoever you're meeting, because you've bothered to go out and look at their city, to learn about it, to have an idea of their culture. It gives you something to talk about. So I always think when you've got limited time, try and combine things that will be value for your business and for your own personal health as well.
No, that's a really good tip, Nick. Cheers for that. I remember when I used to manage the resort in Singapore, the head of Hyundai used to fly over quite regularly, and he wanted to play tennis at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the first time I can remember getting that phone call going, do you want to take that session at 5 o'clock in the morning? I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to do that. But we had a session at 5 o'clock in the morning. He used to play 5 till 6, 5 till 6:30. He used to go and get a shower. He used to have breakfast, and then he used to have his 8 o'clock meetings. And he was like super efficient, but he had his system down pat. So every time he flew in, it literally had to be 5 o'clock. If it was like, oh, I can do 5:30, he's like, no, I'm not doing it. Had to be 5 o'clock. Because that's the thing that works for him. And it's kind of having some kind of structure and some kind of, what you were saying before about getting the rhythm right, getting the process right in an uncontrollable world. So, you're flying in from, as head of Hyundai into Singapore, you're there, you have your tennis session, you have your breakfast, you have your first meeting, you literally will go through till maybe 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then you'll take people out for food. And you'll do that for 2 to 3 days a week. So that's your rhythm. And while you're away, do different countries give you different rhythms, Nick, or are you just do you have your own?
Yeah, I mean, I travel a lot into Europe, and that to be honest is the rhythm where you've got to get it right, because often European travel is 2.5 hour flights. So you often finish your day at work, get to the airport, jump on a flight, but getting on a 6 o'clock flight probably means you arrive in a European hotel probably close to 11:30 midnight. So you're not going to do anything in that evening in reality, and then you're up early and you're at work the next day. So what I will try and do is build a schedule, thinking of how I want to be health and fitness wise, body wise. So I'll try and say, if I'm going to work in Europe, I'll try and not set up meetings that are really early starts, because I know that means waking up earlier, getting even earlier to a gym. So what I try and do is maybe do a breakfast meeting where you can combine a meeting with an activity you need to undertake, which is food, but it gives you that same concept of meeting, but being able to maybe slip into the gym at 7:30 in the morning, giving yourself a little bit of extra time, bit of extra sleep, various things like that. Whereas conversely, when I was in Australia, I knew that because I was going to be up early in the morning doing meetings all day, even if you're someone who survives on adrenaline and caffeine and everything, you're still going to hit the wall in Australia about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's really important you build in some time to maybe say, look, I just got to get an hour, 2 hours sleep at 5 o'clock to 7 because I got to go out. We're going out for dinner, so you want to be fresh for that. So it's about try to think before you travel about constructing a schedule that actually helps you, your fitness and your health and well-being. Don't always accept the meetings as they come. Try and shape the schedule to suit your goals as well. And I think that for me would be a critical point. I'm sure you talk a lot about planning and structure to suit your goals as well. And I think that's an important caveat.
Yeah, with the G10 program that we run, we're always looking at getting the processes right, trying to make sure that you have that planning phase, because what you don't want to do is to be caught in an environment where you've traveled so much, you put so much hard work into it, then you get to the meeting point and actually your energy levels are so low and your focus levels are so low that you're not even anywhere near your C or D game. And that's the difference between making a deal or blowing a deal completely. And that's because you've just planned yourself really poorly.
And the other thing is always to, a lot of times the people you're meeting at the other end, especially if you're going long haul, they'll understand that you've traveled a distance. So kind of a good one is to tell them your travel plans, so that they know, for instance, if you're coming into Australia, they know not that you don't want late meetings into 5, 6 o'clock at night, because then the audience that's traveled from the UK is really struggling after lunchtime because they've arrived, they've probably had one day to acclimatize, and then you're in that situation. So if you share your travel plans a little bit to say, I'm arriving on this late in the evening, most people are generous to say, hey, do you want a late start? Do you want to start at 10 o'clock? They'll give you that option. So it's about just gently shaping your communication with the person you're meeting so that they understand it's a two-way street, and they'll try and set it up because they want the peak performance from you. They don't want you to travel all the way to see them and to not have slept or to be struggling or various things like that.
Yeah, I learned that lesson on a trip to Hong Kong. We had a contract in Hong Kong, and got there really early morning meeting. I might have been in my George Michael phase at that moment with a little bit of stubble, and I literally managed to get into the hotel, managed to get my suit on, shirt and tie on, and literally straight off to this meeting. But I can remember kind of going, I had no razor blade, and it wasn't horrific, and I'm not really dark anyway. And literally had the first meeting with the marketing director there, and then went and grabbed a coffee, which was just in a little breakout room. And I heard the marketing director turn around and go, I couldn't even be bothered to get a shave today. And I'm thinking, I've been flown into Hong Kong, I've been to the airport, but again, it's just, making sure that you plan right and you accept the culture and you get all of the pieces of the jigsaw put in the right place in order to perform.
And sometimes, to be honest, you can plan all you can and it just doesn't fit in. So, I mean, like I've had multiple occasions where you exactly the same. I've flown into a country late at night, arrived there, midnight hotel, I'm waiting at the baggage carousel, no bags. So, and you suddenly sat there in jeans and a t-shirt, knowing that at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning you're in a business meeting and all your luggage and everything is in another country.
Yeah.
You've just got to adapt to it. You've got to run with it. You've got to find a way of just showing up and just explaining the situation as soon as you get in there. And usually what happens, most people really fear that situation. Oh God, I'm going to go to a meeting and all I've got is jeans and my golf shirt or something like that. Yeah. And actually it just becomes a story afterwards, and it becomes quite funny even for the customer as well, because they understand it. These things happen. I mean, but my one hint on that one would be most of the time do carry on luggage rather than check in, but make sure your suits and your carry on. But it happens to all of us at some point. You just got to get, you're going to have these situations, your flights are delayed. You just got to be open and honest about it, jump in there, and 99% of people will laugh with you, they'll joke about it, and it becomes a story that they'll share with you and over that time. So I never worry too much about that, but it is going to happen to you.
Yeah, I just tried to sing Careless Whisper and I'm not there. It didn't go down very well. No, but Nick, you're right. I tell you what, one of the things which, I've learned over the years is no matter what the cultural barrier might be, no matter what the cultural change or shift is, people all like stories. No matter which part of the world you come from, people love stories. And if you can tell them the story about the fact that, you've got your t-shirt on and all your bags have been nicked, they will laugh at that. It breaks some of those barriers down a little bit, doesn't it? And it happens in business.
Yeah, and as I said, people are understanding, they get it that way. And if you travel a lot, you are going to miss flights, you are going to be delayed, you're going to lose your luggage. These are all things you just have to adapt with and make the best of at the end of the day. And I think people, you've got to get in that mindset when you're traveling to think about your structures, think about your planning, but you've also got to be a flexible person. You've also got to be able to adapt to changing environments. You've got to adapt to different rhythms, as we've spoken about. So I think that is something, if you want to control everything when you travel, it becomes more difficult. If you accept there are things that you can't control and you just have to adapt and work on it, it will stand you in good stead. Cool.
So how do you then manage you as a person in terms of, let's take business out the way. And I can remember you sending me, I think it was a visual with a little note which said, I've been in the air, like, was it the whole month of last year or something crazy, like 5 weeks of the year or something, you were in the air.
Yeah, so it's thanks to British Airways for that one. They're sending you an app telling you exactly how many miles you've travelled, how many hours you've been in the air, how many times you've been around the world in a year.
And we would recommend any other airline, by the way, but if British Airways want to sponsor these events, that's fine.
What you do find is that you, as a traveller, you become a fan of the frequent flyer points and various things like that. But in all honesty, it's a great question. Is how do you manage yourself? One of the key things I think for me is when you come back, there is a temptation that you're often from traveling, even if you've only been to Europe or something like that. You can be quite tired when you get back home. So you've got to have an element of self-motivation to get out, to do things. And I think one of the big things that I have in my travel is also learning to not so when you get back, so there's a classic example. If you're going out all the time during the week for business dinners, then when you come home, you might really value a night at home or a couple of nights at home cooking in that sense, because you want something different. And it's the same. I'm always quite careful. Like, I know if I'm going out the weekend with my friends and we're going to go out for a meal and we're going to go for drinks and stuff like that, I'll try and during the week, I'll try and do something like where I maybe only have a couple of beers or something like that and keep it down so that I really enjoy the weekend out with my friends. And I don't think, oh, I've had drinks 5 nights in a row, because by the time I get to the night with my friends, I'm kind of like, I wouldn't mind a night off from having drinks. So I'm quite disciplined about that when I'm traveling, so that I still enjoy my social time as well. And it's great to blur your business and your social time together, and you enjoy traveling with your friends and your colleagues and various things like that. But you also want to make sure you've got some energy for when you come back to your own social life. That can be one of the big things that I see people struggle with, is they travel so much that they've got no time for their life where they actually live, and they're just coming back crashing for a couple of days before they get back on a plane on a Monday or a Tuesday. So you got to think those things that you're not getting when you're traveling. So for me, for instance, I love going to play golf or tennis at the weekend, because it's that ability to be outside, playing sports, enjoying the fresh air. That's something when you've been cooped up on a plane or in a hotel or not your own environment, makes you feel great at the weekend.
Yeah, and if you haven't got that, it's going to come back and get you at some stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just go business, travel, home, business, travel, home. You need something at home, and that's where relationships really, really suffer. That's where your own mental health suffers, where your own fitness level suffers. So how do you manage mapping your own personal goals to business goals? How are you able to actually be successful in both, Nick?
I think, to be honest, there are times where one will override the other. So, and that again goes back to that cultural side of things, knowing when you're working, knowing when you need time to switch off and various things like that. So I think one of the things that's great for me is that I enjoy my job. I like to be out and about. I like to meet new people. So I don't feel like I'm ever pressed that hard. But, in terms of getting the social side of things, I find that I have to be quite good at planning some downtime. So I'll often say, right, Saturday morning, Friday night, set that as downtime, refresh for the week, make the effort to go see people. One of the big problems with traveling is the last thing you want to do at the weekend is travel.
Yeah.
So this is one of the big things that I think to factor in. So I know, like, for instance, when I'm about to go on holiday or something that I'm looking forward to, a weekend break, I'll try and fit my schedule for the year so that I have maybe a week at home before I go away. Or maybe I'll try and limit so that if I'm traveling, I'll travel at the start of the week. And if I'm going on holiday, it'll be on Friday or Saturday. So that you give yourself that traditional bit, which is looking forward to going on holiday. And sometimes, like, for instance, in myself, you can get in that little situation where you're like, oh, the last place I want to go is the airport. And it's not fair if you've got a partner or someone like that who is really looking forward to their holiday or their travel. And if you've been traveling all the time, it's the law of diminishing returns. You don't enjoy it as much. So make sure you build in some time into your schedule to allow you to appreciate that trip, and also do things you wouldn't do normally in business travel. So, for instance, a class example, I go in the lounge all the time. I sit there, I do work, I probably have a bit of food, and that's it. When I'm going on holiday, we'll go in the lounge with my family or something like that, and I'll be like, right, we'll have a glass of champagne, because I wouldn't normally ever do that on business travel. So you do things, little triggers to make it different to what your traditional business travel is. So it feels like you're on a different kind of trip.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nick, for that. One of the things I've always admired about you, and I think it's also something that we share a little bit, is the fact that no matter how successful you've been, you're still very motivated to learn more, to be a better person, to gain more knowledge, but also to advance, I guess, your personal learning as well. So I know one of the things that you've done this year is you've gone back to university to learn some new things. Do you want to just tell me a little bit about the course and what are you doing, and also why?
Yeah, so I do something called the Royal College of Defence Studies, which is one of the UK's top strategic courses, leadership, various things like that, using key speakers from around the world, international relations theory, various things like that. And it's been fantastic for me because I mean I left university after my MA would have been 2006, 2007. So you build up a career and you're learning on the job all the time, but it's learning doing. You have very little time to sit back and reflect and look at things like theory. And sometimes one of the things we can do is we can get very wrapped up in a way of seeing things. The thing is, you generate a way of seeing a problem or seeing an idea. And in truth, you've done it because it's brought you success, so you still do that. But sometimes having that ability to step back, to spend time with people who are maybe, and one of the things that I really value is spending time with people who are in different industries, but are successful in those industries. And the way they look at things or the way they manage problems or lead people can be slightly different. And in hearing their experiences, you start to question, well, actually, am I doing everything the right way? Or was I just doing it because it brought me success in the past? And actually, as I move through my career, I may need to add some more strings to my bow to understand a different way of leadership. And you realize you're getting older, you're getting, seen differently within the workplace, which is another key factor. Now people are looking at you to be a leader, whereas before you were probably striving to become a leader. Now you need to employ different skill sets. So I think anytime you have that ability to go back and reflect and think about things and look at yourself and learn from the people around you and learn from key speakers and people who challenge you on thoughts, I think it's a great opportunity, and I'd advise it for everyone, especially when you get to, I'd say, probably 10 to 15 years in the workplace, because that's when also you kind of need a re-up in yourself as well, in terms of you can say, right, it's a slightly different environment, I'm not as comfortable, or I don't know everything in this environment, or I'm still learning. And I think that continues for me to bring one of your key elements of being a good leader in any business, which is some humility, that you don't know all the answers, you never will know all the answers, but you're striving to find as many as you can.
I think that's another brilliant top tip. And what I've found over the years is you find people who do their job, tend to be really good at their job, and then get to be really comfortable at being good at their job. But then all of a sudden the job changes, or the environment changes, or the market changes, and then all of a sudden their fear kicks in because they haven't got that. They never learned it. They never evolved it. So they're stuck. And that's where we talk about people becoming dinosaurs, because they haven't been able to integrate themselves in a new world. And I think one thing that you've always done, and you've tried to continually been looking towards what is the future going to look like for Nick Osborne? What is the market going to look like? And therefore challenging yourself to learn and grow within that world, which, makes you invaluable over the next 10, 20 years of your career.
Well, it's a bit like I've heard business people speak about this at times with businesses, and it's the same for the individual. One of your most dangerous points as a business is when you're having success, because you stop looking to the future of how to create success, and instead you become protective of it, of how do I maintain this level of performance. But that can be the same with your person. You can be really successful, doing really well, and you become defensive and you look at how you can maintain instead of expanding or growing or looking at, actually there's a problem coming around the corner. And I think the same concept for businesses is also true for us as individuals, is when you're comfortable or when you're having success, that can be a time when you're actually saying, maybe I'm at risk of plateauing. I need to do something to keep me aggressive, to keep me hungry, to keep me moving forward. So I think there's no better ways. It can be education. It can even be something like challenging yourself individually to do a different sport, to read something different, to challenge you mentally, to just give you different perspectives. But it's something I remember it was taught to me about business, and said, look for those businesses that start to not grow and stay successful. Those are dangerous ones, because suddenly they don't see the changing trend, or they don't see what's coming around the corner. Your classic Nokia examples and things like that, which are businesses that didn't see or didn't want to look at the future because they had a very successful business model at that time.
And you mentioned sport there with that too. And we run a coaching boardroom program, which literally looks at taking all of those leadership and management lessons from the world of sport and applying them to a business. Because as a team, as a sports team or as an individual, you're always having to adapt and change, because the tactics from the opposition, the playability of the person that you're playing against, the courts, the environment, it's constantly changing. So if you think of business like that and you think of yourself like that, then you continue to learn and grow, which can only be a good thing. And I love what you just said there, because that is so true for your relationship as well. So whilst we get comfortable with business, we get comfortable with the wife, we get comfortable with our Friday nights out with our mates, and then all of a sudden we're now in this constant, and the fear to move from that is huge. And that's what stops people from really evolving, is that fear of failure or the fear of the new stuff that is out there.
Yeah, and I think that's where sport can teach you great lessons. For, it's taught me a lot in times of tennis and various things like that, of how to translate those lessons you learn competing. And lots of us who watch this will have played sport at different levels, even if it's just a kickabout in the park to a game at county levels, national levels, various things like that. You learn a lot about how to interact in business from your sports. And you can't stand still. You can't just train at the same level. You need to bring adaptation in. You don't do the same thing every day. And I think even if you look at professional sports, it can be the changes in how you motivate people, the way you treat individuals, how some people like to train, some people don't, and how you bring in those concepts. And I think it's a brilliant way, for me, sport and business. There's no coincidence that a lot of people who become successful at sports also can go into good, successful business lives. And it's not just because they've got a competitive streak. They also have traditionally a hard-working element to them. But most of all, they're looking always to add a new skill set or to refine something to perform better. And I think if you look at yourself as a worker, as a leader, you should always be looking for those things you can refine and do better, but also trial and error as well. Those things you can try out that potentially are cutting edge or new. It's the same as in the sports world as in the business world.
Nick, I think that's a brilliant time to end in terms of understanding this combination and correlation between business and sport. Thank you very much for your time today. If everybody else wants to share and subscribe, that'd be great. Nick's give us some really good tips. What we'll do is we'll pull them together as a PDF, free downloadable PDF for you guys to work through some little activities about your own mindset, especially through international travel, but also through change as well. And we'll have that available on the website for you guys just to download, so have some fun. Nick, thank you. It is always a pleasure, and we will speak soon.
No worries. Thanks, guys.